Hi beautiful, welcome to my channel and welcome to the official 2024 ranking video. I have every single palette I have tried in 2024 in front of me and I'm about to rank them from the worst to my most favorite. Keep in mind, I rank my palettes on my level of excitement for them, how much I like them, how much I like the formulas, how much I like the color story, and how much use I see myself getting out of the color stories as well. So nobody get upset at how I'm ranking what I'm ranking. This is my personal preference and I'm sure we all have different ones. Anyways, I have over 50 palettes in front of me and I'm going to show you swatches of my favorites, but I'm not going to start showing you swatches until we get to around my top 20 palettes or so. I'm going to try to get through my worst palettes as quickly as possible, so I'm not going to be showing you swatches of those. I'm simply going to tell you why I rank them the way I rank them. If you are excited for today's video, don't forget to please give it a thumbs up before you leave. If you're interested in any of the palettes I'm about to talk about, I'll have the top 25-ish palettes or so listed and linked down below in the description box of this video, and let's go ahead and get started. I just recounted them. In 2024 I tried 57 palettes total. Let's get started with the worst palette of the year at number 57, and that is this disappointing thing right here. This is the Opalescent Orchid palette from Pat McGrath. Take a look at the inside of it and what it looks like. This was a huge disappointment because even though the color story is cute-ish, this palette is extremely expensive for what it is. These are not nearly close to the best Pat McGrath formulas. In fact, I think these are probably the worst Pat McGrath formulas I have personally ever tried. The palette is still expensive and this is like ColourPop quality. Not bashing ColourPop, they make affordable makeup products. This is luxury, this is not affordable, and it is definitely not worth the price. This one honestly upset me when it launched, and I think the title of worst palette of the year is definitely deserved when it comes to this one. Moving on to number 56 from L'Oreal, the Paradise Enchanted palette. This is like an okay palette for the drugstore, but I feel like you can find palettes priced at drugstore prices from indie brands that have much better quality than palettes like this one does. It's kind of powdery, the pigmentation is kind of meh. You can make it work and I think it blends okay. I'm not upset at the color story, but honestly every single other palette I have in front of this one has a much better formula, so that makes this one my number 56. 55 from Nomad Cosmetics, the YXC palette. This is what it looks like right here on the inside. This palette has a really good formula. I just personally don't see myself getting a lot of use out of this one because I'm not the biggest fan of this color story in particular. I never see myself wearing these colors on their own, so for that reason this one is number 55. 54 is a palette from Odin's Eye. This is the Earthwood palette. Honestly, this palette has really good formulas. The only reason it's towards the back for me is the fact that I was personally not able to like make this color story work for me. Whenever I combine colors from this palette, the color combinations that I was trying to do never worked out exactly the way I wanted them, and so for that reason this one is number 54. At number 53 I have another Odin's Eye palette, and it is this one right here, this Silvery Bliss palette from the holiday collection. It's okay. Again, Odin's Eye has really good formulas. I'm not the biggest fan of like super red eyeshadows, and I feel like this palette is red dominant. I was able to create a look that I liked with this one, which kind of made me reevaluate my thoughts on it, but at the same time I don't really see myself reaching for it that often. Honestly, out of all of the Odin's Eye holiday palettes, this is probably my least favorite. So this is number 53. 52 was another palette from Pat McGrath. This one also a holiday palette, and it is this one right here, the Luminous Legends in Starfall Seduction. This is what the color story looks like. The formulas of this one are really good. This is her Made in Italy formula, not like the very special like Mothership palette Made in Italy. This is the cheaper, kind of crumbly sometimes Made in Italy, but it still works fantastic. No complaints about the formula when it comes to this one. This color story though, I feel like I have to combine this palette with something else in order to be able to make it work for me. It's kind of reddish. I feel like I love purple eyeshadow, but there is a specific tone of purple that looks kind of brucey on my complexion, and that is the kind of purple that you can find in this one. I felt a little punched in the face when I put this palette on, not very flattering on me. For that reason, this is 52. At 51, I have a Natasha Denona palette. The competition was very stiff this year. This is why you're seeing a lot of my favorite brands towards the back of the video, because everyone came out with bangers this year. You have these same brands that I'm mentioning last in my top 10 as well, so you'll see. It mainly depended on the color story for me this year and how much use I got out of the specific palettes. Anyways, number 51, Natasha Denona palette. This one right here, the Hyper Natural Face palette from Natasha Denona. Honestly, this one was a little odd from the beginning. Yes, I was able to make it work. Yes, I can use the bronzer and the blush. I can use the shadows that are meant to be used as single shadows. Personally though, I'm not a single shadow type of person. I like to build and blend and combine my shadows together, and so for that reason I just don't think that I'm the target audience for this palette. I have not reached for it much since I got it, and so for all of those reasons, this is number 51 for me. I love Natasha Denona face palettes. They're some of my favorite in my collection. This one in particular though was not it. I prefer the ones that she's released in previous years. At number 50, a palette from Fantasy Cosmetica, which you guys know is one of my favorite indie brands. This is the Fantasy Cosmetica Enchanted Forest eyeshadow palette, and here is what it looks like. Fantasy Cosmetica has incredible glittery, shimmery shadows, fantastic mattes. No complaints about the formula of this palette at all whatsoever. It's just a little grungier than I'm used to when it comes to eyeshadow palettes. I feel like these types of colors kind of look a little dull on me, and so I haven't really reached back for this palette in particular as much as I thought I would when I first tried it. At number 49, the ColourPop X Pokemon Collection palette. Check it out right here. This one is bright and fun and full of amazing colors. It has some really cute looking shimmers. The mattes work fine. ColourPop doesn't have my favorite formula of eyeshadow ever, but they have a really good affordable formula that I can work with, and I love the color story of this palette. It's fun, it's vibrant, it's colorful, perfect for like the summertime season. So this is number 49. At number 48, another Pat McGrath palette, and this time I'm talking about the Celestial Jade eyeshadow duo from Pat McGrath. These shimmers have pretty good formulas, but nothing out of this world extraordinary, and this little duo was honestly kind of expensive for what it is, so nothing bad to say about it, except it was just kind of expensive for what it is, and so for that reason this is number 48. At number 47, I have a palette that I thought I was going to love and cherish forever, but it ended up being a bit of a letdown for me. I absolutely love the color story of this one, but the formula was not what I expected. It did not meet my expectations, and I am talking about the Moon Shroom palette from Lunar Beauty. Here's what the palette looks like on the inside. I love mustardy yellow shades. I love every single matte down here. All of those metallic shades are incredible as well as far as the color of them is concerned. I hadn't tried Lunar Beauty's eyeshadow formula in a very long time, and I honestly expected it to be better than what this palette was. I had a bit of trouble blending out some shades, combining some shades. I remember things not blending into each other the way I wanted them. I remember things kind of turning muddy looking, and so for all of those reasons, the formula of this palette, even though I love the color story, the formula of this palette was a disappointment, and I haven't really reached for it that much because I know that it's a formula that I have a hard time working with. At number 46, I have a palette that has a really good formula and honestly good color stories as well, but I just don't really like super jumbo palettes anymore. I prefer smaller ones, and this one's kind of a little bit too big for my makeup preference at the moment. I'm talking about this one from Odin's Eye, the Eternal Twilight palette. It's a huge palette. Here's the color story of it. I do love Odin's Eye formulas, and I find that the shimmers and mattes in this palette have incredible quality. There are some shades in here that definitely stand out for me that I absolutely love, but when it comes to reaching for it, I would have much preferred that they had released a palette duo rather than this big palette that is still a 2-in-1 type of thing. I don't know, this might be a pretty like surface level reason why this one ranks a little lower for me, but I just don't like the bulky packaging. I wish they would have made it 2 smaller palettes instead of this big thing. With that said, I do really like the color stories. I like the warm versus cool tone thing, and like I said, there are some shades that definitely do stand out for me in this one, but I just wish the packaging was different. I just realized I have like 3 Odin's Eye palettes back to back. So the next one is number 45, and that is this one right here, the Mighty Monster palette from Annette and Odin's Eye. This palette is honestly beautiful. I guess starting from here, I kind of like everything coming up, but I have to rank them, right? First of all, I love that Annette chose these very metallic shades to put in this palette. The formula of Odin's Eyes, like I said, I love. It's incredible. And even though the matte shades look kind of very colorful and random, these matte shades work together beautifully. Annette, when she released this palette, made a ton of videos with different eye looks with it that I really loved. And so honestly, I don't really have a lot of negative things to say about this one. I really like it, but I prefer the ones I have in front of it, I guess, a little better. So this is 45. At 44, from the same collaboration, the Spring Dragon palette, which was a collaboration with Judy, and out of that Odin's Eye collection, this one right here was my favorite. This came out right around the spring season, and so these pastel colors were godsends for the springtime. They are beautiful, even though they're very light. They're nice and pigmented, and they work together beautifully in order to create some really nice cotton candy type eyeshadow looks. So I love this one. This is number 44. At number 43, I have an Adept Cosmetics eyeshadow palette, and that is the Flying Fiddles palette right here. Here's what this one looks like. I am a sucker for Adept Cosmetics shimmer formulas. I love their duochrome, multi-chrome, shiny shimmer shades. They know how to do shimmer eyeshadows right, and so I absolutely love the selection of shimmers in this palette. This palette, as you can see, does have 4 matte shades, which work okay. I'm not the biggest fan of their matte formula, but just the fact that these shimmers are so good makes this one be my 43rd most favorite palette this year. Plus, I like this color story. Okay, it's not one that I'm reaching for all the time, but I love having these shimmers available to me. Number 42 and number 41 next, which are both the creamy palettes from Huda Beauty. These get extra points for being more natural, neutral palettes, because these are color stories that I gravitate towards, and also these are pretty travel friendly, being smaller 9-pan palettes. With that said, are they like my favorite Obsessions palettes Huda's ever made? No, they're kind of mid, if I'm going to be honest with you. This one is 42 and this one is 41 because I found that a couple of the shades in this one, even though they look different enough in the pan, look kind of the same when you put them on the skin, versus with this one you do get the full range. The shimmers in these palettes are good, and they are all cream, which might be a turn off for some people, but I actually kind of like working with cream eyeshadows. I was not upset at that, so for that reason these are 42 and 41. At number 40, I have a palette that I tried rather recently, and that is this one right here from Bobbi Brown. Bobbi Brown did a collaboration with Pac-Man. I'm obsessed, okay? Obsessed with the packaging of this one. Definitely gets tons of extra points for the beautiful packaging. And here's what the color story looks like. It's kind of a basic color story, nothing overly special about the colors they picked for this one. With that said, this palette does have really incredible formulas. I wish the shimmers were a little bit more sparkly than they are. They are pretty toned down types of shimmers, but you can create some really beautiful natural looks with this palette. And like I said, it gets a lot of extra excitement points because I really love the packaging of it. So this is number 40. At number 39, I have another Adept Cosmetics palette. This is the Unity palette, and here is what it looks like on the inside. Very similarly to the last Adept Cosmetic palettes I talked about, I'm just obsessed with the shimmers, and I like the shimmers of this one even better than the shimmers in the previous palette I mentioned. The mattes with this one were a little better, but also not my favorite when it came to the shades they chose, because I don't really use fuchsia pinks like this one on my eyes. that often. Not the biggest fan of them. And then I thought this brown burgundy shade was going to look incredible on me, and I ended up being disappointed because this is one of those burgundy-ish purpley shades that make me look like I was punched in the face. So I was not the biggest fan of this shade. The rest of the mattes were good, but then with the rest of the mattes, I don't get enough depth. Anyways, what I love about this one, definitely the incredible, spectacular mirror-like duochrome shimmers that Adept Cosmetics makes, and so for that reason this is number 39. At number 38, I have a palette that combines creams and powder eyeshadows, and that is very multifunctional and all rose, and that is the Danessa Myricks Groundwork Blooming Romance palette right here. Take a look at the inside of this one. Big shades are cream, the small shades are powder. I kind of wish it would have been the other way around, just like with the previous Groundwork palette, but this is the way Danessa prefers it. This palette, as you can see, all rose, so you're going to get very monochromatic eyeshadow looks when it comes to this one. With that said, it's very multifunctional because you can also use these shades on your lips or your cheeks. As far as the formula is concerned, I feel like it's a very fun palette to work with. And then the other drawback this one's going to have is that it's all mattes, no shimmers, but I absolutely love this palette and I love the multifunctionality of it. So this one right here is number 38. At number 37, I have another palette from Odin's Eye, the Rosy Jingle palette, which was another palette from this year's Christmas collection and the one that I liked the best. I love the light rosy shades of this one, and I love how those rosy shades combine with the fun gold shimmers in this palette as well. I love the lilac shade and the pastel blue and this one right here. This palette was definitely lots of fun and not very traditional when it comes to Christmas, but I really liked it, and of course I love Odin's Eye formula. So this is number 37. At number 36, I have a little one from Natasha Denona. This one right here is the Natasha Denona Mini Rose palette. Check it out right there. It's not a very deep palette, so if you have a darker complexion, I don't recommend this one for you. With that said, it does have a really beautiful rosy toned, travel friendly color story with Natasha Denona eyeshadow formulas, which are always, of course, a 10 out of 10 for me. I wish the palette had a bit more sparkle in it, but it's very travel friendly, very natural looking, and honestly a very everyday flattering palette that you can get a ton of use out of. So this is number 36. 35 is a palette from Too Faced. This is the Cold Smolder Nudes palette from Too Faced, and here is what it looks like on the inside. This one came out along with one that was a little warmer. I only picked up the cool toned one of the two, and I really like this color story. Super travel friendly, very everyday. Another palette you can get a ton of use out of, flattering cool toned shades that have a good formula. I wish the shimmers were sparklier, but they're more office appropriate, if you will. So nothing wrong with this one. I really like it, and this is number 35. Number 34 is this one right here, the VIP palette from Polite Society. Here's what the inside of this one looks like. I don't think the formula of Polite Society is super outstanding, but it is a very solid, good formula, not too powdery, blends nicely, good pigmentation. They came out with this 9-pan palette that I believe is the first and only palette they've ever made, and it's pretty good. It is a color story that we've seen a lot in the past, so that definitely took points away from it, but it is a travel friendly, sturdy palette with a good formula. I don't really have any complaints about this one. The shimmers are good, the mattes are good, the packaging is cute. So this is number 34 for me. At number 33, I have, I believe, the only NARS palette I tried this year, which is the Afterglow Irresistible palette from NARS. Honestly, I feel like warm color stories are coming back in 2025, or at least I'm personally getting back to warmer shades as well as cool tones, because I truly did enjoy the fiery warm shades in this one. NARS has a really nice formula with solid blendable pigmented mattes, but my favorite thing about the NARS eyeshadow formula is the ethereal. I know I said I wasn't gonna swatch till like 20, but here's what I'm talking about. So yeah, I love the color story of this one. Nice, sturdy, beautiful, luxurious packaging. NARS honestly doesn't really deviate much from like this type of color story, and I so wish they did. But anyways, this right here is number 33. At number 32, I have a clutch, and that is the Couture Mini Clutch from YSL. This one gets extra points because the packaging is fabulous. And here's what the inside of it looks like. It's a good everyday palette. These YSL clutch palettes have gotten better with time. The formulas are actually good now. When they first came out, I wasn't a fan of the formula, but they have rectified their errors. Anyways, this is just a good old fun quad, easy to travel with, perfect for everyday looks. I love the rosy tones in the mattes. I love that you can also keep it very neutral with this brown shade, and you have a nice shimmer to put on the eyelid and inner corner. Nothing groundbreaking about it besides the packaging. I do really love the packaging. Very luxurious and fun to look at for sure. This is number 32. And at number 31, I have a beautiful cool tone palette from Nomad Cosmetics. This is the OSL travel palette from Nomad. It is a 6-pan palette with fantastic formulas. The mattes are creamy and pigmented. The shimmers are blinding. If you are a fan of cool tone shades and you want a little palette, look no further because this one is spectacular. Nothing to complain about when it comes to this one. Nice, fun size, beautiful cool tone shades. I love it. This is number 31. And at number 30, I have the other palette that came out as part of that collection, the AUH travel palette from Nomad. I honestly just have this one in front of that one because I like the warm formula of this one better than the cool formula of the other one for some reason. I had a ton of fun creating looks when this collection first came out. I love these coppery shimmer shades, are beautiful. This is a perfect transition. I love the fiery darker mattes as well. Again, nothing to complain about. Beautiful, sturdy, travel friendly packaging and a really nice color story. So this right here is number 30th. And at number 29, I have a palette that usually releases every year, and it usually ends up at least in my top 5, and this year it is number 30th, which is crazy. But I really was let down this year by the Huda Beauty palette release. So number 30th is the Huda Beauty Icy Nude palette, which is a palette that does have incredible formulas. Here's what the inside of it looks like. Beautiful chunky shimmer shades, good blendable pigmented mattes, but this palette has a lot of shades that are super similar to one another, very repetitive. If you want to see me dive down and show you all of the shades that look similar and the differences between them and what I think about this palette, definitely check out the review video on this one. But I will quickly tell you, it is a repetitive palette. You could have made a 9-pan palette with select shades from this one and be able to get the same amount of looks that you can get with this one. So for that reason, this one lost a lot of points in my excitement for it this year. The shimmers are good, and I do love very sparkly shimmers, but a couple of them are on the like chunkier side as opposed to them being more on the ethereal side, which I prefer. Anyways, I think I said 30th, but this is actually number 29. At number 28, I have another Nomad Cosmetics palette. I'm obsessed with the packaging of this one. This looks like an oil painting. It is so beautiful and textured. This is the Fuji 5 Lakes palette from Nomad Cosmetics. And here is what the color story of this one looks like. I love the yellow shades in this one. I even like the blues and the cool tones. Not the biggest fan of the reds, but like I could use the rest of the palette just fine and be extremely happy with this one. Nomad has really good formulas. The mattes can sometimes be a little bit powdery, but they have really good pigmentation and they blend beautifully. The shimmers are really nice. Honestly, I don't really have a lot of complaints about this one. So this right here is number 28. At number 27, I have a little quad from Charlotte Tilbury. The only Charlotte Tilbury palette I tried this year because I did not go for her holiday palette. I knew I was going to be disappointed without even trying it. Anyways, at number 27, I have this quad right here, the Queen of Luck quad from Charlotte, which came out at the beginning of 2024. This is a really nice little quad, perfect for everyday looks. It has a couple of ethereal shimmers, a perfect inner corner shade, and a glorious looking matte shade that complements a lot of different skin tones. You can build it up, you can blend it down. Charlotte does have incredible shimmer formulas that I find to be beautiful and luxurious. With that said, this is number 27 for me this year. At number 26, I have an all matte palette from Makeup by Mario, and that is the Master Matte, the Neutrals palette from Makeup by Mario, which I quite like. It's just an all matte palette, you know, like there's no shimmer in it, so I like to use that in combination with other palettes, and so that makes it kind of lose points for me. It does have really good formulas. I love Makeup by Mario eyeshadow formulas. They are pigmented, and even though they're pretty soft, they are not super dusty. I don't find that you get a lot of fallout with them. And I do really love like the neutral tone of the color story of this palette, because I feel like it truly goes with every vibe. So yeah, this right here is number 26. Palette number 25 is from PATRICIAALONSO, and it's basically the same palette I just showed you except different formats. This is number 25 right here, which is the PATRICIAALONSO Major Dimensions 3 eyeshadow palette, which is all matte. This one is in front of the Mario one because it gets extra points for having a couple of cream shades that you can use as eyeliner. But besides that, as you can see, the color stories are pretty similar. Nice neutral matte palettes. The Makeup by Mario one has the one gray shade in it that the PATRICIAALONSO one doesn't have, but they're honestly so close to one another. Anyways, these are 26 and 25. And I gotta say, I do prefer palettes that have mattes and shimmers combined, but for all matte palettes, I do love both of these. At number 24, I have a palette that technically did not launch in 2024. But I thought it would be fun to rank it in this video because that way I can compare it to like nowadays palettes, even though this palette came out a long time ago. And a long time ago, it would have definitely been my number one for a lot of different years. I'm talking about the Urban Decay Naked palette, which they relaunched last year in 2024, and I tried it again and compared it to my original like 8-year-old, 9-year-old Naked palette. The formulas of this one, I gotta say, are pretty good, especially when it comes to Urban Decay modern standards, because the original formula of the Naked palette I think was better than this one. You can see my side-by-side comparison video if you guys are interested. It was a lot of fun. So I do believe the old palette has a better formula. However, this palette has really good formulas for what Urban Decay has been giving us for the past few years, because Urban Decay formulas have definitely gone down in quality, and this one definitely was a bit of a resurgence for them. They had to make it close to the original Naked palette, which was a masterpiece, and so they did a pretty good job. I do have a couple of shades of this one that I like even better than the original, but for the most part I think the original has better formulas. If we are to rank this color story with the rest of the palettes that I tried this year in mind and the color stories of them, I rank it at number 24 because it does have a ton of colors that I would still reach for on a daily basis and really good formulas. But I do have a lot of palettes in front of it still that have either better formulas or color stories that excite me more nowadays. At number 23, I have a little palette from Anastasia, the Sugar palette that came out towards the holiday season. Here's what this one looks like. Obsessed with the middle row of this palette, the beautiful shimmers in it. This palette has pretty good formulas and they are nice and pigmented. The shimmers are incredible. I will say the mattes can be a little bit powdery, but nothing you can't control, or you can simply just do your eyes first and make it work that way. Love the formulas, love the color story, love the packaging and the travel friendliness of it. So this right here is number 23. At number 22, I have a palette from a new brand that came out in 2024, and the brand is called BUXOM Cosmetics, and this was their first and I believe only release so far. Take a look right here at the fun color story of this one. Even though I'm not the most colorful person when it comes to eyeshadows, I had a blast. When I tell you I had a blast playing with this one. I gave you a review video with 3 different looks on a brand that nobody had ever heard of before. So it didn't get a ton of views, but I had a blast playing with this palette, so I had to. Here are some of the shimmer shades that you can find in this palette, and I will go ahead and show you because they are so much freaking fun. Take a look right there at the incredible duochrome and multi-chrome shades that this palette has. The shimmers are simply fantastic. They are beautiful and ethereal and colorful, but like in a natural way. The mattes are definitely the most colorful aspect of this palette. I did really have a ton of fun playing with neon colors like these mattes right here. My favorite look I created with some of the shimmers and these 2 mattes, and honestly I loved loved this palette. It is a pretty colorful palette, and I don't reach for super colorful palettes all the time, which is the reason why this one is number 22 for me. But with that said, I had a ton of fun playing with it, and if you love colorful eyeshadow palettes, this is a must-have, okay? I highly recommend it because it is incredible. At number 21, I have this one right here from Nomad Cosmetics, the Polar Express palette from Nomad. Here's what the color story looks like. I thought I was going to be a bit disappointed at the reds, but these reds actually made me want to use red eyeshadows because they're like toned down reds, not super bright. This one looked beautiful on the eyeshadow look I created with this one, and then I love the shimmers in this palette as well. Take a look right here. This multi-chrome blue shade is incredible, and as you can see, the shimmers are nice and ethereal. The mattes are beautifully pigmented. They blend like a dream. Honestly, this palette is really nice. If you like this color story, highly recommend that you go for it. I had a ton of fun playing with it, and you also get your like nice matte neutral shades and the frosty icy ones as well that are perfect for the winter time. So not too late to get your hands on this one yet. I loved it, and this right here is number 21 out of 57, which means we're about to get into my top 20 palettes of 2024. These right here are my most favorite, most loved, most used palettes of the year, and I cannot wait to share them with you. I do need to get my makeup wipes out for real now because I do want to spend a little more time on these and show you some swatches of my favorite shades from these palettes. At number 20th, I have a palette I tried very recently and absolutely fell in love with. I have an eyeshadow look I created with it to post on a makeup short video here on YouTube or a reel on Instagram that I have to edit still. But anyways, I'm talking about the Galactic Visitor palette from Singe Beauty, and here is what the color story of this one looks like. As you can see, it's colorful, but like not as colorful as I would expect for a first Singe Beauty eyeshadow palette, because Angelica Nyqvist is a very colorful person. This one is colorful but wearable, which I really love. It's one of my perfect in-betweens when it comes to eyeshadows, and I love the shimmers she shows for this one. Let me show you guys a few. Take a look right there at the beautiful frosty shimmers that this palette has in it. They're not super ethereal but also not chunky. They kind of have this beautiful metallic finish to them that I love. And then also take a look at some of my favorite matte shades that are in this palette. As you can see, even the lighter pastel shades are very pigmented. This is a nice pigmented formula that is not crumbly. It doesn't really have fallout. It is creamy and it blends very nicely. Absolutely zero complaints when it comes to the formula she shows for this, and I really love the color story as well. So for all of those reasons, this one is number 20th, and I need to edit and post the video I filmed with that one so you guys can see the eyeshadow look I created because it's stunning. At number 19, another palette from Nomad Cosmetics, the first one I tried in 2024, I believe, which was the New Zealand palette right here. I'm a sucker for like purpley type color stories, and I know there's only technically 3 purpley looking shades in this palette, but there are a lot of complementary colors to purple as well. So I love shades like Carter Observation and Aoraki Mackenzie here. Also this Milky Way multi-chrome shade that has purple in it. These three are kind of my star players in this one. I really love them. But honestly, the color Alkaline Stardome right here, very complimentary to those shades as well. It's a pink shade that is not fuchsia and it's not too bright, and I love it. And then of course, I love multi-chromy looking shades like these two. This color for a transition and this one are fantastic as well. Take a look right here at some of the swatches of this New Zealand palette, and you can obviously see the reason I love it. So this right here is palette number 19. At number 18, I have a Fantasy Cosmetica palette. This one's called Cradled in Ice, and as you can see, it has some stunning colors in it. Absolutely love matte creamy shades like these four right here. Ugh. These colors are right up my alley. This color right here on my ring finger, oh my god, I love it. That like light purpley shade, and it combines so well with this muted pink. I love this dark brown that has a hint of purple in it. So stunning. These mattes are so stunning. And then you also get mattes like this one here, which even though I'm not the biggest fan of blue eyeshadow, I can make work and I absolutely love. But then you get to the shimmers in this palette, and obviously they are the best part. Let me show you four of them. Fantasy Cosmetica makes some of the most stunning shimmer shades. These are metallic, beautiful galactic shades that can be seen from outer space, okay? Absolutely love them. And then when you combine them with mattes like these, you get a palette that is an absolute winner. Love it. I have a Fantasy Cosmetica discount code. It is PATTY10. All of my discount codes, I'm not going to mention them anymore throughout the video. Check the description box for all of the discount codes with all of the different brands. I have discount codes from Natasha, Denona, Odin's Eye, Fantasy Cosmetica, Adept Cosmetics, etc. So definitely check out the list of discount codes in the description below if you are interested in shopping any of these palettes. As I was saying though, I'm obsessed with this Cradled in Ice palette right here, and so that is the reason this is number 18. At number 17, I have a Sigma Beauty palette. This one right here, it is the Cool Neutrals palette from Sigma Beauty. And take a look right here at the stunning color story. It is beautiful and neutral, and it's got some incredible shimmers and incredible matte shades as well. This palette is set up so that you can use them combined, or you can use them as duals, like those two shades will go together, these two, those two, etc. Let me show you some of the metallic shimmer shades from this one that I love. Check it out right there. Really stunning metallic shimmers that have a bit of an ethereal vibe to them. And then you also get some incredible mattes with this one that I absolutely love. Check out the matte shades right here. And then of course they combine beautifully with those shimmers. Clearly you can see this is one of those palettes that you'll reach for all the time if you prefer to wear natural colors on a daily basis. Add to that the fact that it has some stunning formulas, and again you get a winning palette, and so that is the reason this is number 17 for me this year. At number 16, I have another Odin's Eye palette, and that is this one right here, the Soulmane 2 eyeshadow palette from Odin's Eye. This I believe is the last Odin's Eye palette I have in my ranking, so this technically is my number 1 Odin's Eye palette of the year. I love this one as well because it has a colorful but wearable color story with some incredible shimmer shades that are going to look so beautiful on your eyelid. Check out the shimmers right there. And then you get some nice neutral with a hint of color mattes as well that combine incredibly well with those shimmers. I love Odin's Eye eyeshadow formulas, and I love colorful but wearable color stories like this one, and so all of that makes this be my number 16 palette of 2024. Moving on to number 15, and number 15 is from a brand that I ended up falling in love with this year, and that is Unearthly Cosmetics. Number 15 is the Unearthly Cosmetics Spring Magic eyeshadow palette. This palette is absolutely a freaking spring/summer dream come true. Unearthly Cosmetics has some incredible shimmer shades that I absolutely love. Take a look right there at those beautiful ethereal shimmer shades. I am in love. If you want to look like a fairy, this is the palette to go for, okay? I'm obsessed with this one. It is so good. Hopefully they still have it on their website. I don't know if their palettes are limited edition. Here are some of my favorite mattes from this one as well, and they combine so beautifully with these shimmers. Obsessed. I could not put it down during the spring and summer season in 2024, and so for all of those reasons, and obviously the stunning shimmers I just showed you, this one right here is number 15. At number 14, another springy type palette. This time we're talking about BUXOM Cosmetics. BUXOM came out with the Pretty in Pastels palette during the spring in 2024, and I fell in love not just with this palette but with this format of palette where they do like a row of a specific color and they create a palette that is very easy to navigate. This middle row right here can always be your transition shade. You darken it up with this one, you smoke it out with this one, eyelid shade, inner corner shade. It is truly that simple, and you can create 4 different eyeshadow looks right there that are going to be incredible. But then also, of course, you can kind of go in between the shades and combine everything. BUXOM has beautiful matte shades. Even the lighter mattes are pigmented and blendable and just fantastic. Take a look right there. I barely dipped my finger and you get that amount of pigment, but then you also get these insanely beautiful multi-chrome shimmer shades in this palette that are beautiful and ethereal, and they just go on your eye so easily. The mattes blend like a dream. Everything is perfectly pigmented. Just 10 out of 10. I think every single palette in my top 15 or so are going to be a 10 out of 10 for me, because I truly love these formulas and these color stories that much. So this right here is the love of my life, and also number 14. At number 13, I have this little one from Anastasia. This is the Anastasia Spice palette that came out for the holiday season. I just love the formulas of the shimmers that Anastasia included in this palette. They are beautiful metallic golden champagne type shades, and they combine beautifully with the matte shades she added to this one as well. This palette is travel friendly. It is natural looking, but you can also take it from day to night. It has some spectacular glittery shimmer shades in it. And because of the type of color story that it has, is a palette that I see myself reaching for a whole lot. So for all of those reasons, this one is number 13. At number 12, I have a Natasha Denona palette, and that is the Natasha Denona Golden palette from the summer season last year. You guys, this palette is beautiful. Obviously, I'm obsessed with Natasha Denona eyeshadow formulas. You guys know I love her mattes. I think her formula is one of the most easy to use formulas ever, and this palette could have gone in my top 10 if it had a bit more variety within the color story of it, but it is a pretty monotone palette. With that said, these are still shades that I love and reach for, colors that you can wear for any occasion. This could be your work palette or your night out palette. It is a fantastic palette with lots of beautiful matte neutral type shades like these right here, and you can also count on it to have some really spectacular golden shimmers that are going to complement everyone. So for all of those reasons, this is my number 12th pick right here. At number 11, another Natasha Denona palette, one that I thought had the potential to be my number 1 favorite palette of the year. However, it did let me down just a tiny bit. My expectations were just bigger than this palette was. I'm talking about the Roxa palette right here from Natasha Denona. This is, as you can see, a purple inspired eyeshadow palette, and it does have a few purple shades in it, 4 to be specific, which I'm about to swatch for you. Take a look right there. Those are the 4 actually purple shades of this palette, and those 4 shades are surrounded by a variety of roses and 3 random warmer shades that kind of upset me when it came to this one, because I thought these were so out of place in this palette. I did a video where I switched those shades out for shades that I thought would go better with this color story, and came out with a palette that is a bit more neutral leaning than this one is, but that I enjoyed a lot more. I ended up putting it back though, the way it was. Anyways, this right here is the Roxa palette. I love purple shades, and Natasha has incredible shimmers and matte formulas. And I did end up creating some stunning purple eyeshadow looks with this one. So for all of those reasons, this right here is palette number 11, which means we've gotten to my top 10 most favorite palettes of 2024. And at number 10, I have a little one from Natasha Denona, the Natasha Denona My Mini Dream palette. Technically, this one came out end of December last year, right after Christmas. But because it came out after Christmas, I couldn't include it in last year's ranking. So it's getting included in this one. And this right here is number 10 for me. For a 5-pan travel size palette, you can't get a lot more perfect than this one is. It has a couple of beautiful transition like matte shades. It has a stunning dark brown neutral matte to darken everything up with, and then it has two pretty incredible shimmers that complement the 3 matte shades so beautifully. This palette can be used on a daily basis, or you can even smoke it out and make it more sultry and sexy for nighttime, which makes it a perfect palette for a ton of different occasions. Very versatile in my opinion, plus the fact that it has incredible formulas in it. All of those make this one my 10th most favorite palette of 2024. At number 9, I have a palette from a brand that I had never tried before, especially no eyeshadows from them, and that is Dolce & Gabbana. They came out with this palette this year. It's called I Dare You Multi-Finish Eyes and Cheeks palette. I didn't know you could use this for cheeks. I think it's just an eyeshadow palette because the shades are tiny. Anyways, take a look right here at the absolutely fantastic, stunning, beautiful color story. If this looks brand new, is because I haven't used this one. Mine came broken. If you watch the review video, you know mine came broken and kind of missing one of the shades, and so I have kept up using the broken one. I haven't touched the new one yet, but with that said, I do find this palette to have some incredible formulas and a stunning color story. Let me swatch some of my favorite shades for you. Take a look right here at the incredible metallic finish shimmers that kind of have a duochrome to them as well. And I absolutely love the colorful but wearable mattes that the palette has as well, and how beautifully these matte shades go with the shimmers. This palette also has a cream black shade that you can use sort of as eyeliner or to deepen up everything. I honestly have had a ton of fun playing with this one, or you know, the other one, throughout the year, and so for all of those reasons, this right here is palette number 9 for me. At number 8, I have this one right here from Sigma Beauty, the Little Mermaid palette, which is colorful and fun and an incredible quality eyeshadow palette. I love matte shades like the ones I'm about to swatch for you. They're creamy and pigmented. They blend beautifully. Nothing to complain about. I love these shades, and I really love how these shades complement these stunning multi-chrome shimmer shades that they gave us with this palette. They took the mermaidy thing to heart and they gave us a lot of shifty shimmer shadows that I absolutely love and combine so beautifully with these mattes. This formulation of this Little Mermaid palette is possibly the best formula I have ever tried from Sigma Beauty. They truly went above and beyond with this collection, and the formulas of the eyeshadow palette in particular are superb, okay? So needless to say, I am fascinated and in love with this Little Mermaid palette, which makes it be my 8th most favorite palette I tried in 2024. At number 7, I have another palette from Unearthly Cosmetics, and that is the Gargoyle palette they released towards the fall season. Check out the shades right here. Even the lighter shades of this palette that you really don't think much of are incredible. Like this green right here or this light blue right here happen to be two of the matte shades I love from this one. I'm sorry that my hands are a mess by now, by the way. But take a look at the matte that this palette has. I also love this purple shade, and it of course has some incredible browns as well. The best way I can describe these matte shades for you is telling you that they are smooth as butter. They're incredible. They're pigmented. They blend like a dream. They're buttery, smooth, matte shades. And this palette, of course, also has some absolutely stunning metallic shimmers that go so well with mattes like this one. Unearthly Cosmetics really surprised me this year when it came to their formulas and the color stories that they come out with in their palettes, and I'm excited to continue to play with their eyeshadows throughout 2025 and beyond, because they have truly become one of my favorite eyeshadow palette brands at this point. And so this Gargoyle palette from Unearthly Cosmetics is my 7th most favorite palette I tried this year. At number 6, I have a Pat McGrath eyeshadow palette, and that is this one right here, the Pat McGrath Mega Eyeshadow Palette in Luminous Legends. Take a look at the inside of this one. I am in love, obsessed. This palette is incredible. This palette is not the best Pat McGrath eyeshadow formula, but it is a pretty good Pat McGrath eyeshadow formula. This palette is one of her made in Italy palettes, and it has some really stunning, creamy, blendable, pigmented, smooth mattes, complemented by some beautiful shimmer shades that are very metallic, very holiday-esque, very attention-grabbing shadows, which I absolutely love. I love that even though there is not a huge variety of matte shades in this one, it does have quite a bit of a variety when it came to the shimmer shades in it, which makes the palette pretty versatile. And so I found myself definitely getting my money's worth with this one, because I wanted to reach for it for every holiday occasion this year. Every time I would grab a different color shimmer and come up with a look that was completely different from something I had created before. And so we're finally at my top 5 most favorite eyeshadow palettes I tried in 2024. At number 5, I have this stunning palette from Dominatrix Cosmetics, the Burly Basics palette. This one has a similar format from the spring palette I showed you earlier, and I love this one so much because it has the most intense, most reflective shimmers. You can barely see them on the screen because they're that reflective. Like, all of the ones on top look the same, but I promise you they're different. Look at those multi-chrome shades right there. Anyways, this palette also has 4 different color stories. You have your mauves, your warms, your olives, your cool tones. And once again, you can use the palette in the same way I showed you with the pastel palette. As I said before, they have some stunning matte shades that blend and perform like an absolute dream. And I am a huge fan of their ethereal, beautiful shimmer shades. I created 3 different looks when I first reviewed this palette, so if you have not seen that video yet, I highly recommend that you check it out. This is one of the most versatile but still wearable palettes with incredible quality that I tried in 2024, and you can use this one for a daily basis if you don't use the smoky shades, or you can create some really sultry, sexy looks with it if you do use that darker shade of the palette. Definitely a must-have in my opinion. At number 4, I have an Adept Cosmetics palette. This one is a collaboration with Amy Loves, the Amy Loves Adept Cosmetics palette, which is a party on the outside and also on the inside right here. Really love the matte shades she shows for this one. And when it comes to Adept Cosmetics, I find that having a palette with really good matte shades makes all of the difference. All of the matte shades in this one are pretty cool toned, but they do have differences between them. I wish there was an even darker shade than this one in the palette, something that would go a little deeper than it. But with that said, this palette from Adept does have really good matte formulas, and then combining those matte formulas with the shimmers that Adept Cosmetics already excels at definitely makes all of the difference. Check out these 3 right here for reference and how beautifully they combine with the mattes. And then this palette from Adept has the sparkliest eyeshadow shade I have ever tried, ever. Like, from my entire eyeshadow palette collection, I don't have any shade as sparkly as this one. It's the shade Glam, and I left a clean finger to show you. This one up here, you barely have to touch it, and it is the most intense shimmer shade ever. Take a look at that. It's a freaking mirror on your eyelid. The most insane shimmer with the best quality. I absolutely love it, and this shimmer gives this palette extra points. This shimmer on its own gives this palette extra points. It is fantastic. Also, even though it might look it because it's so reflective, I promise you it's not a chunky shimmer. You can actually like work it in so nicely to look more ethereal if you wanted to. It's so good. Such a good shimmer shade. My third most favorite palette of 2024 goes to the Denona Lightworks Volume 6 palette right here. This palette is an all shimmer palette, and you know it's gotta be good for an all shimmer palette to be my third most favorite, because I always tell you guys I prefer my mattes and shimmers combined, but this palette gets extra points for packaging, and obviously the fact that it has incredible formulas helps it as well. As you may or may not know, you can have this palette stored the way I showed you it, or you can also grab its mirror and combine the 6 pan palettes to end up with a stack that looks like this and that is very travel friendly. I absolutely love a ton of different shimmers from this palette. The formulas are incredible, and you can create some fantastic looks with shimmers like these. These are beautiful and pigmented, and they are ethereal, and they are going to combine super beautifully with any matte shades in your collection, or you can use them on their own if you want to. Personally, I do prefer to combine them with some mattes, but like even if you just use like a matte bronzer, put it on your crease and then use those shimmers to get the shiftiest, most shimmery, most beautiful eyeshadow look. Denona did the damn thing with this palette, okay? Love the formulation, love the adaptability of the eyeshadow palette, obsessed with the packaging. It is fantastic. Definitely a luxury item. It's on the pricey side, but I think it's 100% worth it. My second most favorite palette this year is from Natasha Denona, and it is the Natasha Denona I Need a Warm palette. Here's what this one looks like right here. Definitely more versatile than the golden one I showed you earlier, because it has some really stunning dark matte brown shades with different undertones that makes it more versatile for me, but also it makes it more friendly towards darker complexions as well. And then you have some stunning coppery shades, you have some stunning shimmers that are going to combine with those mattes beautifully. I love the etherealness of Natasha Denona shimmers and how stunning the matte shades she gave us are. This palette is extremely versatile as well, because you can create the most basic, everyday, like clean girl aesthetic eyeshadow look with this palette, or you can go full on sultry, smoky, sexy, glamorous, glittery eyeshadow look with it. So it's a very versatile palette in that sense. It's also nice and warm, but not super warm. It's like a wearable, barely warm type color story that is going to look so amazing on a ton of different complexions. Incredible formula, incredible quality, nice and versatile, and a color story that I see myself gravitating towards and getting a ton of use out of for years to come. All of that makes this one my second most favorite palette of 2024. Which brings us to my number one most favorite palette that came out this year, which is the palette I've been wearing all throughout the video. This palette has ethereal shades, and it's beautiful and neutral to cool tone. If you haven't guessed it yet, we're talking about the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Moonlight eyeshadow palette. This palette gets a 10 out of 10 for formulation. The colors right here at the bottom, these 3 dark shades, are some of the most intense matte formulas that blend incredibly easily and don't have a lot of fallout that I have had in any of my eyeshadow palettes. I'm wearing this blue shade back here, but I did combine it with one of the browns, so it doesn't look as blue as it does on my finger. This is probably the blackest black I have ever had as well. And as I expressed to you guys throughout the video, I do love me some ethereal shimmers. And that is exactly what Mario gave us in this palette. And they combine so beautifully with the rest of this color story. This palette is versatile in the sense that you can also get a very boring, everyday, clean girl aesthetic eyeshadow look with it, or you can go full on sultry, smoky, glittery, glamorous with it. At the same time, it has a ton of depth to it. It's going to be incredible for a ton of different complexions, and the formulas are fantastic. I see myself again reaching for this one for years and years to come, and all of that makes me very excited to have added this palette to my collection, and it makes it my #1 most favorite palette of 2024. I truly hope that you guys loved this year's ranking video. If you did, leave me some fires in the comment section below. I have been sitting here for a long time talking to the camera and my throat is currently on fire. So please leave me some fires in the comment section below if you made it all the way to the end. If you're interested in shopping for any of these palettes, please do so using the links I'm leaving you in the description box below, or the products tagged on the screen. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and if you want more content like this one, don't forget to please subscribe. But before you leave, I love you all so much. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you back in the next video. Bye.